ready for something slightly controversial? Because in this video, I want to ask the question whether you're charging too much for your virtual assistant services. Now, I'm one of the biggest advocates out there for virtual assistants to make a living wage and to get paid well for what they do. However, lately I've seen a variety of people who are offering these really high dollar hourly rates or retainer packages, but they're not necessarily communicating the value of that. So one of my original mentors in the online business space told me something several years ago that really stuck with me. She said she had never met a virtual assistant who was charging more than $50 an hour, who also brought along $50 an hour or more in value to her team. Now that's a major disconnect, right? This is somebody who owned a 7-figure business and was very successful in the online space. But if you can't communicate and then bring that value to charge $40, $45, $50, or $60 an hour, then your client is not going to stick with you. So you'd actually be better off making a slightly lower hourly rate, but having clients who feel as though you're right on target and asking for that. Now, I'm not advocating that you charge $5 an hour or $10 an hour and make no money as a virtual assistant. But if you're going to be charging these really high rates, you need to be bringing a lot of value to the table. High-end strategy, Infusionsoft experience, other knowledge managing teams of other people, or being a project manager and helping a project move from the initial idea stages all the way to completion. If you're charging $45 and $50 an hour to input an email newsletter, a lot of people aren't going to see that as worth it because that's something they could easily do themselves, and they could outsource it to another competent professional for $20 or $25 an hour. Now, I know this is a really controversial topic, but it's become really popular lately with a lot of virtual assistants who are transitioning to an online business manager role. An online business manager does more than your typical virtual assistant. The online business manager, in some cases, is like the right-hand person to the entrepreneur, helping to create strategy, ideas, and plans for bringing things to execution. So in some cases, for a 7-figure entrepreneur, paying $40 or $50 an hour may be well worth it because that person is helping to generate revenue, ideas, and increase profits all the time. But if you're pitching yourself as scheduling social media posts and sending email newsletters or doing proofreading for $40, $50, and $60 an hour, it's going to be harder for you to land clients because they don't really see all of the value in that. And this is another mistake I see VAs and OBMs in this situation making. They're positioning themselves as providing services and not value. You have to think about your client when you're pitching an offering to them. You have to be able to communicate value versus services. A lot of times I see virtual assistants talking about services. They say, oh, I can create 20 social media posts per week. Great, but what does that actually do for the client? Are those posts going to increase engagement, free up time, provide more opportunities for generating revenue because they'll be heavily researched and focused on conversion? By focusing on value rather than services, you can increase your hourly rate. But always be mindful of the value you're bringing to the table. Don't just charge a high hourly rate for the sake of saying that's your hourly rate and hoping that's what you're going to get. You must be able to communicate why you're asking for that and how the client will benefit from paying something like that. Just something to keep in mind as you grow your virtual assistant business. If you're curious in learning more about launching a career as a virtual assistant and making $1,000 a month or more in your off time, or growing it into a full-time business, check out my resource library all about becoming a VA and my free course about why being a VA right now is a great opportunity for you to add some income and amazing skill sets to your bottom line.